about your journey and what brought you here and your determination to keep doing the work of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in all facets of the workplace.
So thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all of those who've come out to celebrate with me. I really appreciate it. And I just want to call out Dana over there, who is part of this organization, but also a family friend who I have known for a very long time. And Edie here, who I am so excited that our paths are crossing again. I think I probably met Edie, oh God, do you want to say how many years ago? Maybe 15 years ago, I'm not sure.
I think Edie said 30.
Yeah, okay. And then, of course, my mom is here. And I really cannot talk about my success without mentioning my mom. You know, I think that we are aware that women have so much to offer. But if you were born in 1930, like my mother was, there were certain opportunities you were not given. However, I would say that my mom is also a trailblazer because she attended Morgan College and graduated and was a wonderful, wonderful teacher. So when I think about, you know, what got me here, it's definitely my parents. I drew a really, really great lottery, sort of with the parent lottery. I kind of won. They taught me a lot about love and discipline and hard work and justice. In fact, my father was a little bit too much into justice. And it caused him a lot of strife because as a black man, he was in the second class of black firefighters in Baltimore. Apparently, black men couldn't fight fires before 1956 or whatever, right? So one of the things that I want to say always is to give tribute to my parents and also to my ancestors. But when I think about when I first got this idea of my calling, it was really, I talk about this a lot, it was the night before my 8th birthday when Martin Luther King was assassinated. And I just gave a commencement speech in California, and I mentioned this, that you know something's really wrong when you're 8 years old and you're all excited about your birthday and people are crying around you and your city is burning. You get a very clear understanding that something terrible has happened. And Martin Luther King was a real hero of mine. You know, we talked about him in school. I thought, fabulous. He's a wonderful person. And to know that he'd been taken, and to see the anguish and the anger and the burning and the sadness, I thought to myself, I have to continue his work. Now, you think that's a weird thing for an 8-year-old, right? But you're seeing yourself and you're recognizing you're a beneficiary of this person's sacrifice. And so what are you going to do with it? And that's the thing that I'm really asking people right now in the time that we're in. What are you going to do with what you've been given? Right? Because there is, you know, Gwen's like, I didn't ask you to do a whole keynote.
I did.
No, but, you know, there is a sense of neutrality about this that cannot be tolerated. You cannot be neutral in this time. If you find yourself being neutral, you are a part of the problem. You are being complicit. And so, yeah, I mean, I wish I could do more. I wish I had done more. But I know for sure that I am trying to move us forward. And there are people who don't understand that the way forward is forward, not backward.
So what do you say right now when people are saying we're in culturally turbulent times, the workplace is complicated, the companies are saying we don't know what to do? What do you say to that?
I breathe in, I breathe out, and I try to find my most compassionate self.
Mhm.
And I get it. I get the sadness, I get the isolation, I get the fear, I get the anger. I even get the hatred even though I don't buy into it. And so I say to them, okay, it may feel new to you, but retrenchment is the United States' middle name. We've been doing the forward and the backward for a very long time. In fact, you could say that we started in the back and then we moved forward. But then there's always been this kind of chaos and this kind of forces going against progress. But one of the things I want people to know is that they have the opportunity. And I'm looking at you right now, and this could be because I had that drink before, but I don't think so. But I'm so grateful to see you here, and I don't want to be condescending. But one of the things I want to see is I want to see more white women understanding what the opportunity is. Because we are all positioned in different places, we have different privileges, and we need to use them to create more justice, more fairness, more equity, more compassion, more love, less strife. All of us have a responsibility. And that's what I tell folks.
So I was just on this morning with two women talking about resilience.
Yeah.
Kind of in this same thing. What does that look like and how important is that today? You talked about retrenchment.
Yeah. So whenever I feel a little bit like I want to duck my head and I don't want to know all the bad stuff and I want to, watch TV, I just want to relax. I remember my ancestors.
Mhm.
And there's this term Sankofa, which is an African concept of always looking backwards and also taking from your ancestor and coming forward, yeah? And so I think about my girl Harriet Tubman a lot, yeah? And she's from Maryland, or she spent a lot of time in Maryland. If you want to go to the Eastern Shore, you can go sort of see like where she was and what she did. But I'm thinking she went through a lot worse and persevered. I might even use the word perseverance over resilience. And the reason why is because there's a whole kind of a history of Black people being referred to as resilient, which is just like an excuse.
Not helpful.
Yeah, for the harm that they've suffered and somehow we've managed. Right? They're like, oh, you're awfully resilient. And so I recognize that it's not always received. That word isn't always received. But perseverance, and it's not just sweat, it really is faith.
Mhm, mhm.
Right now, we need to have faith. We need to have faith that we have what it takes to do this. And faith is something that you believe in that cannot be seen at the moment.
Yeah.
That was Mom from the Amen Corner. And so faith and hope and love, these three, those are the things we need to call on more than we ever have. But I have to say that when I get kind of worried, I think Harriet went back and forth in the face of real danger. She was in the military. She found all sorts of, you know what else she did? She created an enormous number of what we call now collaborations, right? She could, and the white folks, here's the thing I say to white folks, don't be all down about being white, okay? We need white folks. And in particular, you need to find your ancestors who did what was right. Because there were white folks fighting all along and beside, and also making space for the Underground Railroad, for example. And there is one other thing that I derived from Harriet, which I didn't know, and I found out when I went to Eastern Shore. Did you know she had a disability? She had been harmed. There are different stories about how it all happened, but you know, she suffered horrible headaches, and I guess somebody threw something at her, was bad. She had to sometimes rest in order to persevere. So some of us are in a moment where we need to rest, and I'm not mad at that. You gotta know yourself. You gotta understand what is required in order to make the ultimate journey, right? So I would say, when I'm feeling a little down, I pull from my ancestors. And I also really pull from this newer generation.
So you've talked about privilege, you've talked about partnership, you've talked about sort of where you're pulling from. I want to look a little bit at intersectionality, talk about white women.
Yeah.
We're talking a lot about different women of color. What can we all do together? And how do we do this together? How do we communicate?
Yeah.
So we know how to bring people along.
Yeah, I'm thinking about actually doing a gathering on this very subject because I think it's confusing for all of us, because what we don't understand about intersectionality, I think, is that all of us have membership in privileged groups, okay? And sometimes we use that privilege to protect ourselves. So on one side of our mouths, we're saying we're oppressed. We have really, there is paternalism, there's sexism, whatever. That's one side of our mouth, but we are unwilling often to acknowledge, oh yeah, in the case of white women, but I'm also white. And as a result, I have a number of advantages that comes from that white skin privilege, and I actually know some of the culprits. Yeah, they're my sons, they're my husbands, they're whatever. Okay, so that's one. But it's just not white women. I want to say it's Christian women. It's straight women. It's women who are moneyed. So I can sit here, I'm a black woman, and I am very clear that I went to prestigious schools and I make a lot of money, and that means I'm not having the same reality that black women who are not as well off, or black women who are darker skinned, or black women who are considered too large, size-wise. So intersectionality has to really be used for people to own the whole picture. Not just the picture they want to focus on where they feel that they have been disadvantaged. And if we can do that, if I can sit in a room and someone can say, as a person with no disabilities, I understand that my sister over here with a disability is going to need me to call out where there isn't access. But if I'm afraid of doing that because I'm afraid that I'm going to endanger my privilege, And so that's what I think people want to see. And by the way, this is about evolution. This is about growth. This is about development. This is about opportunity. This is about the uplift. This is going to be my new word, y'all. The uplift. Are you involved in the uplift? Not just of yourself and your family, but of the larger world, and that world contains people who you don't know well, you haven't spent a lot of time with. Let me give you an example. One time I was walking with this guy who was blind. He's a friend, we worked together, and it was a beautiful day outside. And I said, wow, it looked good. He was like, what? I was like, ew. Right? I was going to say to him, look, it's a beautiful day. But I didn't think I could. And so he said, what are you over there saying? And I was like, I was going to say, but I was honest. So we need that honesty.
Communication, transparency.
Transparency, honesty. I said, I was going to say, look at, it's a beautiful day, but you can't see. He goes, I know. When you say, look, you're talking figuratively to me. Right? So, you know what he said though? He said, describe the day to me. What makes it beautiful? And to me, that was so simple. And I thought to myself, why don't I know how to do that? Why don't I know how to do that? And the point is that it's a lack of proximity. Right? So if you want to be part of the uplift, you got to get close. You got to get proximate. And that's the thing in our country that we've refused to do. We live very segregated lives.
I'm going to bring another word into that, trust.
Tell me, so how is trust created? I've been thinking about that for 2 months. How, from your point of view?
I think trust is created, and ironically, I was just on stage yesterday with one of our partners, Synergy, with Dr. Rachel Tolton, talking about trust yesterday. We were talking about this with students in college, right? So we think trust is created by, part of it is respect, part of it is communication and honesty, but it's really by connection. You know, and part of that connection is you and I sitting here right now.
Yeah.
It's not you and I sitting on a Zoom necessarily.
Yeah.
Right, so
you're
part
like
of it is that.
physically.
Yeah. So it's listening,
Yeah.
and this, I'm giving you some thoughts because I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
It's listening,
Yeah.
it's communication, it's respect. But it's, you know, I was with the disability rights advocate for the State Department last week, and she had everyone in the audience throw out terms, and she's blind.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, you know, in the one vein, why do you tell me I'm strong? Or why do you praise?
Oh,
people
yeah.
with disability?
Those
Disability
compliments.
porn, those compliments.
Mm-hmm. Watch your compliments, y'all.
So it's being able to, yeah, exactly, it's being able to have a conversation about it. And saying, here's what I was gonna say, or can I say, right?
So I love the fact that both of us just talked about disability, which I had no idea that you just had that experience. Listening, well, this is something that I've been thinking about and writing a book about this. Okay, listening, a lot of times people think listening is hearing. That's not what it is. I can hear you and not listen to you. Do you know what I'm saying? I know the words that are coming out of your mouth. But am I actually listening to be changed? Am I okay with suspending what I think enough to listen to you deeply, enough to allow what you are saying to change what I think I know? That's real listening. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with everyone, but you gotta let it penetrate. If you don't let it penetrate, then it's a farce. So that's one. I also think respect. And the way that people know you respect them is A, you listen, B, you solicit views, C, you give them opportunity. And that by far, like a lot of people have said to me, I don't care if you like me. I don't even care if you don't say the right thing. Can you give me an opportunity so I can show you how fabulous I am? Because if you don't, basically I just have to pretend that this is working for me until maybe you pay attention. So I feel like trust is about listening, it's about connection, is about authenticity. It's about people having enough courage to say, I think I blew that.
Willing to say when you did something wrong.
Yeah.
Willing to recognize that
Yeah.
you're not going to do everything perfect all the time.
Oh my goodness, I have let people go for like ridiculous things they've done just because they have courage enough to say, I think I just did a ridiculous thing. You're like, I can work with you. I can work with you because at least you have some self-awareness and you are willing, you're more interested in the relationship than protecting your self-image, yeah?
Yep.
And that, the difference between having relationships and having transactions is so important, and I think, especially in the workplace, in the corporate world, we all about transaction.
All the time.
I got this, what you got?
Including the listening. You
Yes.
hear and then you execute.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there a company? Are there people who's doing this right?
You know, people ask me that all the time. And I'm like, what company are you in that like the company itself, the whole company is in lockstep. What I have discovered is that there are usually some fabulous people doing fabulous work in various aspects of an organization. Then there are the people who are resisting. Then there are the people who are just kind of in the middle, and they're kind of nonplussed. They're not in, they're not out, right? And I think that's true about almost every company I've been in. And I don't want to be like, I love Netflix. So I'm just going to say it. Like, I developed a love for that company. And partly it was because they say what they mean. They give feedback. They account for mistakes. They believe in transparency. And so even though they're not perfect, the only reason why I decided to put a little pause in my own career, my own company, which I had owned for 25 years, to go in with that company is that I saw a level of leadership and authenticity and creativity and innovation that I hadn't seen in some of my other clients. Sorry, Greg. And because they're in tech and entertainment, there are less structural issues, right? So some people really want to make changes, but they're sitting inside of a structure that makes it difficult.
So right now, today, I said Women's History Month in March, talking about all of the DEI pushback.
Yeah.
Right. Are you hopeful? What's happening? Are we more aware of listening, trust, transparency, using privilege? Where do you think we are right now?
Confused. We're confused. So, when I came back, when I left Netflix and came back to restart the business, I had no idea that I was going to restart back in the middle of some DEI backlash. My mom's here, I'm going to use the right word. But am I hopeful? That's just how I'm built.
Yep.
But I will tell you that there's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of fear. There's a construct called abundance, which I believe in. But there is another very prevalent construct called scarcity. And that mentality makes people think that they can't win if you win. But DEI is about everybody winning. But you have to have a different mindset. And yes, it may mean that you don't get every job you apply for. See, this is what I love. I love when white men are like, that black woman took my job. You're like, okay, so they're 90% of the people with that job are white men. But your problem was with the 10%? I feel like those 90% took your job. Why was it that one woman who took your job? So I think that part of this is, how do we help people see that if we don't all win, nobody's gonna win. Like in Baltimore, it's like hours and hours of reporting on crime. And often it's property crime. And you're like, what do you think is happening here, y'all? People are not getting the opportunities they need. And I don't want to excuse crime. And I also know they're victims of crime. I'm not trying to say that it isn't. But this is the outcome of an inequitable system, right? And so either we've got to figure out how to create something where we can all thrive, or this is going to continue and continue. So for people who feel hopeless, what I say is that's all they need. Because look, the people who are peddling this nonsense, all they need to do is to get us to be afraid. And then we'll pull back ourselves. They don't have to do much of anything. Throw a few lawsuits. We get all scared. We start changing everything. And then we lose. So trying to get people to understand that there is enough for all of us.
The abundance mentality.
Yeah. Now, let me also be very, very truthful here. It may mean that you're not going to be a billionaire. You know, how much money do you need? How many houses do you need? How many rooms do you need? That's what I want to know. Like, and partly you need as much as you think you need because you are not fulfilled inside.
Yes.
So the work is always starting inside. I actually had this incredible conversation with my kid today about peace. And they were saying, like, it's hard to be peaceful in such a situation where there's so much strife and there's so much violence or whatever. And I say, yeah, but peace starts inside. If you're not peaceful inside, there's no way you're going to give off peace externally. You're going to see that person, they cut you off in traffic, and then you're going to wish them violence, right?
Yeah.
And then when you see an accident about 3 miles up, and you go, oh, I hope they're okay. I hope they're okay. You don't even know that you may have participated in sending a negative energy into this whole situation because you don't have peace in yourself. Well, you could have, and by the way, I'm just going to say this because I just noticed this about me. You know those people who cut in and out, in and out? Most of us are like, I can't stand him. I don't know what. My sister! Hello. Sorry. That's so sweet. I just started going, God, I hope that person gets where they need to go. I hope they're okay. I hope they don't create problems for other people. Because by doing that, I'm sending an energy into the world. And if all of us did it on the highway, man, maybe the highway would be a better experience. I don't know.
Even the 95?
It's worth trying. It's worth trying.
So I feel like we're leading up to the way we like to sort of close out everything we do at WBC is what's the call to action?
Yeah.
What do we want individuals to do? And by the way, Jeremy Sinhal, one of our board members, is walking in. Hi, Jerry.
Oh, it's good.
What's the call to action? Individuals, companies, as broad as you want.
Yeah. First of all, I don't think real change happens unless it starts inside, which I've already said. And then so I think many of us have opportunities to get right inside so that when we're creating change, it's not contaminated with trauma and anger and a lack of forgiveness. Because people feel that. when you're trying to make change and you're like, and you need to just forget it. Like there's no hope for you. Yeah, I don't know her. I'm just pointing at her. You know, she's fabulous. I'm sure.
She's fabulous.
But I've been doing more like on meditation and prayer. So this is really important to me. Whatever practice you have that allows you to really center and ground yourself. There was this incredible story I heard told by an activist from Baltimore who had like worn herself out and went to take like a time off, and I think she went to India or she went somewhere, and she really practiced meditation. Okay, so then she came back into the city and was trying to figure out if she was going to continue this work or not, and she was house sitting for a friend who lived in a very lovely neighborhood in Baltimore, and it's a whole other story, where the police, our city police, their job is like security in those neighborhoods. They just make sure everybody's safe, yeah? So anyway, I guess somebody may have reported that they saw this woman of color in a house that, you know, in a neighborhood where they're not allowed women of color. So the police came to the door, and she was in her pajamas, and she was in the kitchen, and she was having breakfast, and they banged on the door, and then they kicked it in, and they had their guns pointed at her. I mean, this woman is like your size, whatever. And she said, she don't know, from nowhere, she said, "You won't need those." And we put them down. What she said is, there was this, and this is what meditation does. It gives you that much space so that you're not reacting, you're really responding, and you can make a choice. And she said she really didn't know what her practice had done until that very moment, where she was able to evoke a spirit of like peace. It's like, we don't need those. And so that's my first call to action. Do your personal work. Look deeply. Where have you been harmed? Where do you need to heal? What things do you need to do in order to keep yourself grounded? And there's so much distraction everywhere. Okay, so that's one. Two is consider your privileges and use them. Privilege is not a bad word. Privilege is not a bad word. We all have them. There are very few people who don't have some privilege that they can work with. And with that privilege comes power and resources. And yeah, you don't have to be the wealthiest, you don't have to have the highest status, but just search around to see, can you say something? When you see anti-Semitism, as a person who is not Jewish, can you say something? And what would that be? And how would you do that? And so that's the other thing I would say, just like making sure that you take advantage of what you have. And then that crosses on to the organization. Because the organization, one of the things that has always saddened me is that people are all gung-ho until there's a problem. And then they melt away. You're like, where's the support? And they're like, yeah, well, I thought. So the way you are effective in an organization is that you figure out what your currencies are. And you use them. What do you have to offer? What do you have to give that would help someone actually give something to you that you need? And can you, there's a new book, fairly new book out, which I really like. It's called Waymakers. It's like, can you make a way? Can you make a way? And so I'm just going to do a quick commercial because my sister just literally moved yesterday into a new home. And everybody who's moved really knows what that's like. And somehow she showed up for me.
She showed up.
And she's just that kind of person. She's like a person who will always show up for you. So thank you, sister. I truly appreciate that. But what I don't see often is people showing up for other people. And because they perceive the risk. But what I'm hoping is people will also see the risk of not showing up, because it's always going to come home. It's always going to come home to you. I mean, that's not the reason to help other people, but we all know that they come for this group first, but then they're coming for all the groups,
Yes.
right? And so be part of the solution, be part of uplifting and making a way. And the reason why I mentioned my sister is because anybody who works with my sister says she's the best manager, she's the best manager. And it's because she listens and she makes a way for other people. And so that to me, like if you could just say to yourself, like, I'd like to be a way maker, or how much am I making way from others, that helps you to be concrete, right? It doesn't have to be enormous, you know?
You talked about it earlier too, is the creating opportunity.
Yeah.
Right, and then that perseverance piece, don't just let one thing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So those are my call to action. Check in with yourself, use your privilege, and make a way.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are going to do something today that we're able to do. This is a Trailblazer award,
Uh-huh.
which means we got a lot of fire. In honor of everything you're doing.
So sweet. That's so sweet. Okay, whoa. I know how well you know you said that.
Why is I pointing it at you?
Wow. Wow.
As you do that, I want to call up the original admission switch here.
Yes.
Stevie Frazier.
Who is the chair, founder, chair of the board, and longtime friend of Vernā is girl.
Can we just say one other thing? Be a model. Be a model. You are a model. And from the time I've known you, I'm just like, how does she do that? I'm just watching you.
We say thank you for uplifting us together. Thank you, Gwen, from WBC. But the message that you say on uplifting, does everyone agree?
Yeah.
Is just, there's never been a time when we're together for impact. Thank you. And we all salute Vernā Myers.
One more round of applause.
And your mother.
Thank you.
You know, it's amazing to see this fire. It's amazing to see this fire. What I would love is that more people would see the light instead of the destruction, right? The light that fire brings versus the burning. That's, yeah. And it's in all of us. It's not like it's one
It's
of
the
us.
scarcity, it's the light, it's the hope.
Yeah,
It's the hope.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, y'all.
Could we ask our board members, Jerry Mason?
Jerry Mason, Esther Aguilera, please join us. And I want to thank everybody for another round of applause for Vernā and WBC, the collaborative partnership and everything we do.
So fun.